Hello, Cosplay World. We're back with the second part in sorts of the Mesh Quick Tip Tuesday, or Tip Tuesday. Rawr. Anyhow, so if you're interested in plastic meshes, I suggest you head to that video. I think I put it up last week. At least I plan to when I'm recording these. And Cat, you are not. Get out of here. You are not going to be on the YouTubes. Rawr, get out of here. Plenty of cats on YouTubes already. Anyhow. So, this week we are covering metal mesh, and I'm giving its own video because I couldn't cover all of Mesh's interesting things, at least even in passing. These are very, very concise videos, I must admit. I'm going to be covering metal mesh today, and probably talk about it for about 10 minutes. Alright, Cat, you are being very annoying. Alright, plastic mesh is very flexible. It's good for moving in joints and taking con damage and all those good things. And so, what do we do when with this metal mesh? Well, metal mesh is actually much nicer, or it has its own interesting aspects to sculpting and shaping and forming. I'm going to take just a little sample here, and I'm going to make a little, a dome here, a little bit of a complex shape. If I were doing this in plastic, I would have to do some sort of darts, and I would not necessarily get the kind of interesting level of detail that I can get with this metal mesh. Now, you'll see these two are the ones I primarily use. In my youth, in my early cosplay days, I did use chicken wire, but it is so low definition and so easy to mess yourself up, and it just didn't seem worth it for the cost and for what it did to continue using it when I had this plastic mesh. So for larger projects wherein I need a mesh support frame, this is the way to go. It can be supported and it can be manipulated in a similar way. In fact, it comes with a similar pattern if you so choose. But for holding detail and holding interesting shapes, this is a wonderful choice. This is a gutter screen. It's also a gutter guard. Now, a large portion of its ability to hold these interesting shapes is that its diamond shape, or the diamond pattern here, allows me to play with it and work with it quite a lot. It's not, of course, perfect. If I work with it too much, I can break the connections, and then I'll have to start over again, or I'll have to sew them together, so I'll have to work that out. But it's really good for sort of small details and holding those shapes. So plastic is very flexible. The metal tends to be more rigid for your more permanent works, things that you definitely want to be much more solid. As you can see, it is kind of pointy. I don't really want to work with it too much unless I get myself cut up. If you're working with it close to your body in any way, I definitely recommend cutting these little nubs off, or finishing it in some way that they don't mess you up. That is a thing that can happen if you're saying you're sticking your arm into some big project or whatever case may be. But as a project that's going to be covered in some sort of organic material, some sort of scrim, this is very nice for the very, very lightest of materials. Even the XPF foam, when you finish it, when all is said and done, if many times it's not, I can't say every single time, but many times this is a lighter option, and it does have some bounce to it when it is laid down or knocked around. Whereas the foam, I would say, is much more inclined to break, or a bit more, or a case may every scenario. Guys, I don't have time to go into every single scenario, but there you go. It can, of course, be sewn up just like the plastic mesh. I prefer using heavy nylon thread in both cases. I don't think I mentioned that in the plastic one, that I specifically like a nylon thread because of the heavy thread, and it doesn't get damaged or cut as easily. I like to sew and knot it up about every 2 inches just in case it's damaged or cut or something happens where it's broken. That way it's only broken in a small section rather than in the entire piece. And of course the grid does help with aligning pieces and keeping them in place. And since you're stitching, you can always stitch other materials such as fabrics, or in this case EVA foam, to the material in a similar way you would in other sewing work. Well, I'm not going to go into EVA foam specifics in sewing and how to not fuck that up. Oh well. So that's one kind of mesh. This is for your very large, very framey kind of projects. You might have some base support structure as well to accompany that, depending on the size and the idea. It's also very easy to get into because all of your basic paper mache sort of tutorials and backgrounds and all those established techniques are helpful here, and because of the base grid, you can mount it very accurately or very closely to what you want in place. The bigger kind of the chicken wire, you don't have as many cross pieces there, so when you sew something down it tends to wiggle a little bit more. So it's definitely worth, in my opinion, to go with the Gutter Guard. It's more expensive. Typically during the winter is when I grab them because they tend to go up in price towards autumn. Imagine that. But in winter the price drops, and I can get these for $3 a spool. It can get up to, I've seen in the past, $7 or $8. But whew, yeah, right. I'm not spending that money. Well, just be aware. Now, what is this? What is this? Is this a mesh? Well, I would consider it a mesh. At least that's what I use it for. I use this as a support or joint material in heavier works. You'll find this in the metal plate section in your local improvement store next to, say, aluminum or copper or brass or all those other pieces. But what's great about this mesh is it transitions a lot of your heavier materials, a lot of your sheet materials that you might have problems gluing or screwing otherwise. And of course it is flexible and will hold its shape. Metal pieces tend to be very good at positioning, whereas the plastic ones, they might flop around a bit more. So we're good on that. And it will, of course, you can still cut it with scissors. I'm going to be using this already set up example piece here to show that yes, you can totally cut it with scissors. That's not an issue. Bam, there you are. And it has a nice grid to, of course, fold and snap off whatever you need. Now, here's an example of a nice dart, and you can sew this up in similar way as the mesh, or you can put screws in it, or you can use any sort of clamping or eyelet technique that you might expect, or rivets even. Those little snap rivets work just as well. Anything that'll fit through that hole and hold the piece together, bam, try it, it works just fine. But what's great is in some of my larger mechs, jointing a piece to another piece can be difficult, especially when they're using different materials. I like to use MDF as a nice, strong, light support material, but XPF foam as the bulk of the material. That way it holds form, it's easy to sculpt, and all those good things. And this mesh, or grid, or whatever the case may be, whatever you want to call it, serves as a really nice transitional material. It allows me to evenly space all of these screws. As you know, XPF foam, while you can spray glue it, here is the glue for that. While you can glue it, it doesn't adhere to everything. You have to have a uniform surface, but if that's not an option, this is good. You see I put 6 screws in here, and that's really good at dissipating the force. When you're working with foam, more kind of evenly spaced pegs are very nice. Not too many. If I put a zillion of these things in, it just destroys the foam and it doesn't help in any way. And of course, as you can see with the medium density fireboard or hardboard or resin board or whatever the case may be in your location, it mounts very nicely there as well. So I can also mount it to, I can make this into a transition piece where, say I want to take my mech apart, and then this will allow me to put screws in much more easily, more accurately on the convention floor or in the parking lot, wherever that may be. I keep saying whatever the case may be. So, I hope you guys enjoy. I hope you guys look into these. I don't see so many people using mesh these days in lieu of other materials, but it's still quite a reasonable material to use, and I keep it on hand for very light jobs. What is it? One thing I want to say before I go is I like also the smaller grids. I tend to like the smaller grids because they're more easily finished. Those huge grids on the chicken wire, I then have to cover up and hide the fact that it's on a grid. These, because they're smaller, that kind of weird pattern is more easily dissipated and dealt with. Oh well. Thanks for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you found something interesting here. And I'll see you next Tip Tuesday. Thanks for watching, guys. Good times to all. Hey, looks like you made it all the way to the end. If you're interested in more new tutorials, con coverage, and other cosplay shenanigans every week, hit that sub button to get it delivered hot and fresh to you.